First, yes, the huge blockbuster trade that went down late at the end of Thursday Night Football kind of came out. The San Francisco 49ers sending second, third, and fourth round picks in 2023 and a fifth round pick in 2024 to the Panthers for star running back Christian McCaffrey. Adam Schefter broke it. It's official. It's a done deal. So McCaffrey, the former Offensive Player of the Year, the former 1,000 receiving, 1,000 rushing running back, now joins a San Francisco offense that obviously got a lot more dynamic with a big trade. Here is GM of the Panthers, Scott Fitterer, when asked by, well, actually, it's Hold On Scott talking about what's going on with the Panthers. Let's focus starting, Greg, with the 49ers, a team that we were just talking about on Thursday's show. Is this offense explosive enough? Does Jimmy G put a cap on what they can do? Well, you add a guy like McCaffrey, it just got a lot more feisty.
Yeah, I mean, it's an all-in move. And I think it's interesting in this season in context of the Rams and how well Jimmy Garoppolo and their passing attack has been. In the past, we always think like, oh, the running game's kind of carrying the 49ers offense. Jimmy G's along for the ride. This year, they're 7th in passing DVOA. And they're always solid. They're always efficient. They're 26th in running. They haven't been able to get the running game going. Like Shanahan's lost his magic a little bit because of all the injuries and personnel and offensive line. And McCaffrey fixes all that. And I think they look at this offense and they look at this defense, if they can get healthy, and they say, like, we're one of the Super Bowl contenders this year. And I think they look at it in the context of the Rams, the moves that the Rams have made to try to push them over the top. And they got their Super Bowl a year ago. And who was the other team in the mix, according to our friend Jordan Rodrigue of The Athletic, pushing hard for Christian McCaffrey? It was the Los Angeles Rams. And I think that's why they had to pay so much. Scott Fitterer, you'll get to it, mentioned he thought this was equivalent of a first-round pick, getting a second and what was it, 2/3 and a fourth ultimately, that or a second, third, and a fourth. He's right. That is equivalent to a first-round pick. They got a totally fair value, a nice value for McCaffrey. It's a big risk for the 49ers, but no one's going to care if they make the Super Bowl, and that's kind of the bar now. If they don't make the Super Bowl, this was not in the next 2 years or win the Super Bowl, this is going to be a bust.
I mean, I think if you look at what the Niners have done over the last couple seasons, the move for Trey Lance, and it's not worked out to date, but had it, the reason they did it was they viewed themselves back then as a player away from being Super Bowl gold. I mean, they got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, but it's like a true quarterback would take us over the top. All right, they're going to sit with Jimmy G, but again, they say in this environment, in the NFC that we're in right now, where again, we've talked about this all day yesterday on our preview show, it's such a watered down league right now. There's really very few dominant teams out there. And the Niners probably look at Christian McCaffrey and say, once again, he's the guy that can put us over the top, especially when you think about how do you attack the teams we're going to face in January. The Eagles, a team like the Eagles that's stacked on defense. Christian McCaffrey is the guy that can change all that. And we always praise, Belichick's Patriots in days of old for having such versatile players. I mean, if you think about McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, I think they look at the two of them and say, there's no combination of players who can do slot, wide receiver, running back. They can do it all. Like those guys, you throw in Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Juszczyk, George Kittle. And if Jimmy G keeps the mistakes down and you have a top 3 defense that gets healthier and the line gets healthier, the Niners have a right to view themselves as the team to beat in the NFC because the Rams have fallen off a cliff. And it really comes down to the Philadelphia Eagles, I think.
Well, it's a double. It hits double hard for the Niners and their fans in terms of celebration because you're in love with the upside of this trade and you stick it to the Rams, who I think we're getting into this place where we are in the football world now where you're going to assume they're always going to be the team that pulls off the big deal. So you finally got a guy that the Rams wanted. And yeah, Deebo, Ayuk, Kittle, CMC, that's a great recipe for Kyle Shanahan to give us go full Shanahan. Who was it that rushed for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Packers in the NFC title game a couple years back? Was that Mostert?
That was Mostert, I believe, yeah.
You now have the type of running back in McCaffrey who could deliver a game like that if the stars are aligned and you put the San Francisco offense in a place where, yes, there's still not going to be a deep strike, big play attack in a traditional sense because Jimmy G puts a cap on that somewhat. But if you trust Shanahan's ability to call plays and get the most out of a running back like CMC, this is exciting. Now, the reason why they had to give up so much in terms of draft capital is you are trading for the idea of CMC from a couple of years ago. And also the idea this is not a rental. He's due an outrageous amount of money next year that you would think there might be a restructure to make it all work for San Francisco's books. But I don't think they do this trade unless there's an understanding. And I know the McCaffreys and the Shanahans go way back. So all of this makes sense. However, and it's a big however.
It's a big one.
McCaffrey can't stay healthy. And the San Francisco 49ers are a snake-bitten team with health. Now, I don't think it makes him more at risk for injury because now he's a 49er. That would be stupid. But at the same time, we need to see McCaffrey in this offense and stay healthy, because if he gets hurt, they're kind of right back to where they started.
The one thing I'd say, though, I think one of the reasons the Rams were very into McCaffrey, beyond just the idea of what he could do for their offense and would fill a void for them, they just played him. And they just saw him, and he looks like the old McCaffrey. I mean, I think he's also been healthy this season. He's been great, and so that's where that bidding war came from, I think, on one level, was like they saw him up close and personal and thought, this guy could change our offense. So it is a huge win for the Niners on that front. And I would just say the only thing is, like, Shanahan's never had a 1,000-yard rusher in this Niners offense. Which is kind of crazy because he's probably, it's always been a committee and these guys are getting hurt left and right. The only thing about it, like, that I kind of view as a bit excessive is that I don't know if Shanahan in most of his years needed McCaffrey to have a great running game. He hasn't.
Right.
He's turned Jeff Wilson into that guy. So, I mean, it's a bit of a luxury, but I love the idea of, like, if you're going to go for it, if this is your window, you're not going to have Jimmy G next year. You don't know what Trey Lance is. Do it now. I like that. I like the risk-taking, daring-do element of the whole thing.
I'm with you on that too, Mark. I think it's a big swing for the fences by the Niners. Love the trade. On the Carolina side of things, Greggy, I know you love to nerd out on this stuff. It's interesting to me how we've talked about how the Panthers have tried and tried and tried to make a big splash in recent years, and the fates have just not aligned. And I thought this is interesting. Even this trade, where they had this guy that was a generational talent at running back when healthy, and a market with two Super Bowl contenders, and the two teams at the forefront were missing the one thing that the Panthers really wanted. Here's GM Scott Fitterer talking about the trade market and clearly referring to the 49ers, yes, but also the Rams.
We talked to the teams. A couple of teams didn't have first-round picks, that we thought, in that area was probably the right area for Christian with regarding everything. So they complicated it, that there wasn't a first-round pick to be had. So we had to figure out what's the equivalent of a first-round pick if that's the case.
Just, Greg, kind of a bummer for the Panthers that, yes, the Rams traded their first-round pick, as they always do, so it wasn't there. And Trey Lance, that trade led to no first-round pick for San Francisco.
It is a bummer, yet if I'm a Panthers fan, I'm pretty happy about this trade. I'm not happy where the franchise is, and I'm not happy the Christian McCaffrey thing hasn't worked out. But to get off this contract and get 3 mid-round picks and then another 5th feels good. Like
but before the season, Greggy, if you would have told Panthers fans you're going to trade McCaffrey a week and a half before the deadline and you won't get a first-round pick, they would not be happy with that.
Well, that's totally fair, because it would indicate that their season has gone totally haywire. But I think the trade compensation, just in a vacuum, was pretty good for a running back. If anything, it makes the crazy contract that they gave Christian McCaffrey, which people were like, don't pay running backs like that, feel a little better because you got all these picks back. I mean, ultimately, you did get something out of him. And one thing I do want to say just on the financial side, people have kind of looked at it like, oh, McCaffrey's worth so much. And Warren Sharp sent out a tweet that had all the cap numbers wrong because he put like the signing bonus into the cap numbers, and the Panthers already paid that signing bonus. They're just eating that dead cap. He's under contract pretty cheaply, I think, fairly for the next 3 years, 11, 12, and $12 million cap number. I don't think they have to change his contract at all. He's still one of the higher paid running backs in the league, but it's not outrageous, I don't think, for a guy like McCaffrey. And they got these yak bros, and I include McCaffrey in that mix, together for a while. So it's not just a one-year move. I think they should have Debo, Ayuk, who's on his rookie deal, Kittle, who's under contract. That should be the pass catching, I'm going to run for 50 yards when Jimmy G drops it off 5 yards core for a little while, which is nice.
I would also say, I mean, they you can say you want multiple first round picks. I want a lot of things.
They were never getting that.
I don't get everything I want, and neither were the Panthers going to get everything they wanted here. That was pie in the sky To trade him now when there's just this distinct need with a couple teams that thought he's the final piece, they got more than they would have gotten trying to trade him in the offseason. I just believe that. I think it would have been, this is about as much as they could have asked for. They're in a tough position. Also, I think part of it is, where are you going to be with Christian McCaffrey next season at this time or the year after? They're a rebuilding team that has no idea who their quarterback is. Christian McCaffrey does not fit into that offense right now.
All right, let's check in with the listeners streaming live on the Friday Fun Show, working title about this big trade. Let's check. What do you got? Where's Gravedigger? Gravedigger?
Whoa.
Hey, buddy.
Got it. Hey, how's it going? The Soap Bottles wants to know, will the Panthers go scorched earth and trade everything not nailed down now?
Well, Fitterer was asked about that, and he said, this is not a rebuild. We're trying to win, but get out of here with that.
I mean, that's absurd.
Sometimes you just wish that there would be just honesty from the GM. That's like, listen, our plan, it has not worked out. We're trying to get this thing right, and we didn't want to trade CMC. He's a foundational piece, or we thought he was, but we got to take a different approach here. And we're building for tomorrow. Just say that. Why not?
Yeah. It depends on the players, though. I think they're putting DJ Moore, for instance, in a different bucket. That, like, we still need to keep young players that we have under contract that are good. They might not want to trade him. If someone comes in over the top rope for Brian Burns and offers a first, and to me, he would probably have more value than Christian McCaffrey, I would think they would have to listen to that. But I think they'll play a little harder to get with the rest of their roster. They have already picked up 4 or 5 picks here between him and Robbie Anderson. That's not bad.
Yeah. What else we got, Gravedigger?
All right, I'm going to throw 2 at you that are related. The first one, Eric Boogie. Will CMC start and get a majority of the touches for San Francisco at running back this week?
Only one man has that answer. It's Mark Sessler. What's part 2?
I have both Debo and CMC, but as Niners on my team now, do I trade one or keep both? See, I also have Christian McCaffrey in a fantasy league. What the heck do I do this week?
Stack him.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see him this weekend. I don't think that it's not, you're not asking him to come in and play quarterback in a scheme he's never heard about. I mean, this is a running back. I think they've already talked about red zone kind of thing. This was my lock, the Chiefs. I am reserving the right to rethink that lock because the elements have changed. The weather has changed. You'd have to
good because
they said red zone, but I bet it's one of those things that he gets into the game a little bit and then they feel like they can't resist just playing him more and more. You definitely can't sit him in fantasy, by the way, Graver. Like, even if he only played 25, 30 snaps, I feel like you got to play Christian McCaffrey.
I can't now because I would have put DeAndre Hopkins in, but
I'm gonna highlight this one. Aaron Castillo, sharp as a tack. I think Dan essentially acted as Fitterer's puppet by stating exactly what Fitterer would say for him without him having to do it. He got me. Fitterer got me. He put his hand right up me and turned me into a puppet.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, Aaron. Sorry, I
by
got
the way,
played
Scott
so
Fitterer
hard there.
probably not long for that job. I suspect which is a weird thing. He's making these trades, and I kind of don't expect him to be there next year.
That's a good point, and that did cross my mind as well this morning, Greggy. Like, you always run the risk of holding on to a guy too long, especially somebody like CMC who's struggling to stay healthy. But maybe that's a piece that the next guy gets. But I mean, there's just so much stuff going on with this organization. Aaron Jaffe, is CMC to the Niners the biggest running back trade of the decade? Well,
I would
what
say
are the other contenders?
Trent Richardson got a first. That
Richardson
was
was
big at the
bigger,
time.
actually. I mean, he wasn't a bigger star, but it was more surprising, and he got more. Of course, there was the Herschel Walker trade. Herschel Walker, famous now for other reasons, but he used to be famous for setting up that Cowboys dynasty.
Well, that
I don't
wasn't
think
this
this is going to
decade,
set up
though,
a
Greg, just
Panthers
to-
dynasty.
Now he's famous for having a clear-eyed look into the future of America.
How about Marshawn Lynch? That was a big trade, although at the time people really thought he was used goods and that it wasn't that big of a deal, but they got a lot for him when they traded him from the Bills to the Seahawks.
Somebody makes a good
the
point.
way the question is phrased, wouldn't it actually be just from 2020 to now?
Yeah,
Well,
that's
then,
that's
yeah.
a tough
So
one.
how much? We're
Well,
talking
I
about
got one for you.
1989. Like,
I got one for you. David Johnson for DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. This has been the biggest trade of the decade. One more, and then we're going to get Rachel in. Eric Boogie again. The Boogie Man is having a big Halloween season.
He's got good questions.
Are we entering a golden era for NFL trades? Oh, this has got Greggy written all over it. Why is trading so much more prevalent than it was just a few years ago.
Well, I gotta say, the trade tsunami was slightly ahead of its time, but the trade tsunami I would predicted from 4 or 5 years ago has hit. It's because it's easier to get people under the cap now. Like, the cap is so high. I think they structure these trades, these contracts in a way that just makes it easier for people to trade and move money into the future, and people aren't that close to the cap all the time. It's a beautiful thing. It makes the NFL much more interesting.